Now, in this moment, I'm thinking a whole bunch of things that are going through my head. Dana's not gonna give me another shot at the title. The fight's gonna be a no contest. Dana's gonna say he was losing that fight in that 4th round, so why should we use him again? We already know that fight, the direction that the fight was heading in, so we're gonna move on from this. These are all the thoughts going through my head, and I'm never gonna get the opportunity again. I'm gonna have to win 3 or 4 more fights to get back to this position to ever challenge for a world title again. So those thoughts were going through my head, not I'm gonna become world champion. I didn't even think I was getting this. I didn't even want this.
Now, I was eagerly waiting for this. Aljamain Sterling's comments about his fight with Petr, about the disqualification, his status as a champion, how the fight was going down, the criticisms, the celebrations, all of that stuff. He talks about on his podcast, and what I will say is, the comments he made makes me think he absolutely did milk his response to the knee. Not initially, but the whole rolling his eyes back, falling over, and all that stuff. I think that was a bit played up. Firstly, I gotta say, disclaimer, it was a big knee, no matter what. Full flush knee to the face, and his instant reaction from the knee where he was holding his face while being face down on the mat, that I think was a genuine reaction to the blow. He was hurt, 100%. But again, like I said, man, after he sat up and then all of a sudden his eyes are rolling to the back of his head and he's falling over like someone who's badly concussed, that I don't think was a genuine response. And what backs up my claim here are his comments about this. Number one, very important, he remembers what he thought in that moment. He literally talks about what was going on in his head while his eyes are rolling to the back of his head after the knee landed. He was talking about what he was thinking in that moment. If you can remember what you thought in that moment, you're not that badly hurt. A badly concussed fighter who is giving that kind of reaction is not going to remember that moment at all. There are times they don't even remember that they fought that night, right? Let alone contemplating his situation and what Dana White's going to think of him, how he's going to turn this into a no contest instead of taking a loss because he knew how the fight was playing out. Those are literally what he said he was thinking about in that moment. He said he knew how the fight was going. He knew he was down in the scorecards. He knew how big this opportunity was. He knew he wasn't going to get an immediate rematch or anything like that if he took this loss and took the honorable route and stood up and kept going. He said he knew he would have a long road back to a title shot because his first road to the title shot was longer than it should have been because, of course, the UFC was denying him title shots and stuff like that. So he took what he thought was going to be a no contest. He was saying that he did not think he would become the champion. It would have been disqualification. He thought it was going to be a no contest and he would have a case to get an immediate rematch because he could make the argument afterward that you never know what was going to happen. There was another round and a half to go. So he took that route with the least downside, and that is another reason why you saw him win the belt, and he was kind of upset at that because he didn't want to be the champion that way. That's never how he envisioned it. Even now, he still says he doesn't feel like a champion. That goes into the whole celebration photos and videos that you see. There's a video where it shows you the context of everybody taking pictures of him and him looking happy with the belt.
I need you to say it. I need you to say it. Say it with your chest, bro. I'm a freaking UFC champion. Say it, bro. I'm a UFC champion.
His family and friends who flew out to his fight, who finally were able to witness greatness that he was supposed to display and become the champion of the UFC and all that stuff. After such a hard road to a title shot, his family was there to witness the moment. So they're around him and they're literally telling him, be happy, you're the champ. Don't be upset at this. He made the wrong move. He got disqualified. You didn't do anything wrong. Trying to put him in good spirits. That's why you saw those kind of pictures where it looked like he was pretty happy. He was surrounded by the people he loved and they were trying to cheer him up, which they did successfully. And ultimately, they are all right. Aljamain Sterling did nothing wrong here. He didn't get Petr disqualified in a way. Petr threw an intentional knee. He didn't intentionally mean to foul Aljamain Sterling. That's a bit different than intentionally throwing the knee. He intentionally threw the knee, but he didn't intentionally mean to foul him. He didn't think that he would have got disqualified for this. He didn't think it was an illegal blow, but he absolutely wanted to throw the knee. There was a language barrier there, not only from him, but now with further evidence, it was from his corner. They were the ones that were telling him to quote unquote hit him. While the American top team trainers, you can clearly hear them saying punch him, punch him. And you saw the different reaction from his ATT trainers and his Russian trainers. The Russian trainers thought he won the fight. They didn't understand the rules at all. They didn't understand what was going on. While the ATT trainers, who are very experienced here with all kind of fouls and all that stuff, they were upset. They knew what happened when he threw the knee. So there wasn't just a language barrier here, as Jan did not or could not listen to his ATT trainers, but there was a lack of understanding of the rules, and that is mistake number one. You have to know the rules, because if you don't know the rules, you don't know what you can get disqualified for, you don't know how you can lose a fight. And that is ultimately not Aljamain Sterling's fault. It's not his fault that Petr didn't know the rules, It's not his fault that he made a mistake and threw the knee. It's not his fault that his trainers didn't understand the rules either. He took the path with the least downside with a quick, cunning decision. Played it smart. I mean, heck, the same people who are hating on Aljamain Sterling are the same people who called Anthony Smith dumb for not taking the DQ win over Jon Jones. Now that I think about it, nobody's actually calling Aljamain Sterling stupid for this, or he made a dumb decision. Like, literally go around and see everybody who's criticizing Aljamain Sterling, you never hear anybody say he was dumb for doing this. If he wasn't dumb for doing this, was it really the bad decision to make? Why would he take the risk? Why would he risk everything he worked for, the whole training camp, the whole road to a title shot, pretty much his entire UFC career, for a subjective gratification due to quote-unquote honor? That doesn't take you that far, right? Look what happened to Anthony Smith. When you have those kind of circumstances and you're in that situation where you have such a hard road to a title shot, the UFC kept denying you it, so you know how hard it was really going to be when the organization is putting people in front of you in order to fight the champion. I mean, remember when they put Jose Aldo ahead of him to fight Petr? It should have been Aljamain Sterling in there. He understood how tough this situation was, how important it was to stay there. I don't fault him one bit for that. He had a hard training camp for this. He's been through so much to get to this. And the fact now that he got the disqualification win, he's going to get even more pay, get more money from his fights as a champion. And he was going to take all of that away for honor. He's already an honorable man who gets in a cage and fights for a living. That's honorable enough. You don't have to prove anything else. Not only that, he's one of the best fighters in the world. He's top 5 at least, greatest fighters in his weight class on the entire planet. That's honorable enough. You don't need anything more than that. Look how well that did Anthony Smith, right? If Anthony Smith took that DQ win over Jon Jones, his life would have been completely different. Now people don't even remember the guy. They have a lot of respect for him whenever he's brought up, but he's not brought up that often. And he's losing fights. He's probably never going to reach that title shot ever again. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I'm looking at this from a straightforward, realistic position where there's dire stakes on the line on a simple decision that you are going to make. Definitely not an easy decision, given that it can look like it conflicts with your heart, with your spirit of a fighter, your honorable ways, all that sort of stuff that you are pretty much taught in the sport. But it is a simple decision to make. And there are other things that need to be thought about, such as, why are you doing this? Many fighters compete here or stay in the sport in order to provide for their family, for their children, whatever it is. Many, if not most fighters, compete for money, or at least they claim to compete for money. But when they get put in this situation, they don't take that opportunity. The only one that did, at least in my opinion, was Aljamain Sterling. These fighters have to remember it's not their fault that they got put in this situation. They didn't put themselves in this controlling spot of taking a DQ win. It's the opponent's fault for breaking the rules that this game follows. As dumb as the rules are pretty bad. You gotta follow them. That's just it. It seems like fighters will do this also to get away from any criticism from fans. A lot of fans are pretty fickle in this sport. They forget things very quickly, and especially now because Aljamain Sterling has another shot to fight Petr and right any wrong he felt in that first fight. If he beats Petr in the rematch, everybody's gonna forget about what he did in the first fight. Everyone's gonna forget what happened there because he is the rightful champion at that point. So can you really blame him for that decision? Can you really blame him for playing it up and milking the whole thing? When you weigh all the variables, it's really hard not to side with Aljo.
Indo.